Welcome to the latest episode of Spotlight by Next.io. I'm Stuart Crowley, Next.io's head of media and first-time host for Spotlight. As a self-professed nerd myself, or tech nerd, I'm excited to welcome our guest, the co-founder and CEO of Radar, Nick Patrick. Radar is the all-in-one location platform, which is geofencing, geocoding, maps, and now a geocompliance solution for gaming. And today we're going to talk about what's on Nick's radar for Radar in the coming months. So without further ado, welcome, Nick.
Thanks so much for having me, Stuart. It's great to be here.
It's awesome to have you. And so the first question I have, I want to get to know you a little bit and tell me about your journey with Radar and how you got involved with geolocation and geocompliance technology. Are you, like myself, a little bit of a self-professed tech nerd? What made it all happen?
Sure. I am a self-professed tech nerd, and I think others would also profess that I'm a tech nerd. So, started out in the geolocation space about 12 years ago. So my co-founders and I met at Foursquare, which is one of the early location-based social apps where you check in and unlock badges. So that was sort of where we fell in love with geolocation, saw all the cool things you could do with it when it comes to consumer experiences. Interestingly, Foursquare had some challenges related to location spoofing. People would spoof their location and jump around the world to unlock different badges. So it was kind of funny to see some of those challenges come up again in the context of geolocation compliance. But anyway, founding team met at Foursquare. We started Radar back in 2016 with this vision of full stack location infrastructure for every product and service. We really got our start as a geofencing platform. So we started powering geofencing and geolocation for a lot of different consumer companies. Companies like Panera and T-Mobile and Dick's Sporting Goods and Zillow. I've always been really excited about the iGaming space as a consumer. I've been a DraftKings customer for a very long time, for example. And so we'd always been following the space. We started working with two companies a couple of years ago, Sleeper, which is a popular daily fantasy sports app, and Every, which is a longtime iGaming vendor and payments leader. And we started to get really excited about the opportunity. So we started talking to other sportsbook and iGaming operators and vendors. We realized there was this massive opportunity and massive demand for an alternative geolocation solution. And we sort of launched into it last year and formally announced our entry into the space at G2E last year. And today we have 30 enterprise gaming customers. It's our fastest growing vertical. And I'm happy to go more into that. But that's the quick summary of the journey.
That's awesome. With iGaming, I'm relatively new to the industry, but not new to technology and what underpins a lot of the industries in the world generally. And obviously, iGaming being a very tech-forward industry is underpinned by technology, B2B solutions like Radar itself. I'm kind of curious, you mentioned that you had like a personal investment into it with your interest in iGaming. What would you say are some of the interesting or most exciting use cases of geolocation technology for the iGaming industry?
Yeah, I think obviously compliance is at the forefront. And so, sportsbook and iGaming operators are subject to various geolocation requirements, understanding, which state a player is in, making sure they're not spoofing their location, et cetera. For me as a consumer, I would sometimes use, some of these sportsbook apps, and I live pretty close to the, New York, New Jersey state border, and it would hang for 30 seconds, or I wouldn't be able to place a bet or something like that. So that definitely got me thinking, hey, maybe Radar can do better. So geolocation compliance is definitely at the forefront. We're excited about lots of other geolocation use cases as well. We power the store mode for Dick's Sporting Goods. So if you open the Dick's Sporting Goods app in a store, it'll show you relevant features for, in-store shopping, in-store offers, right, store maps, stuff like that. You can imagine analogous use cases inside of a casino, for example. So that's something we can talk more about. I think the most classic geofencing use case is location-based messaging. So I'm near a restaurant or I'm near a store, send me a push notification with an offer or a reminder. Maybe I touch down at an airport in a new city, show me interesting things nearby. So there are ways to use geolocation in the iGaming space as well to engage players at the right place and the right time. And we also launched a whole maps platform. So, this is base maps for something like a store locator or address autocomplete for checkout flows, for example. But I think folks in the iGaming space are very familiar with address filling experiences during a sign up or identity verification flow. So there's an opportunity for Radar to add value there as well. So our vision is location infrastructure for every product and service. We think a lot about geolocation use cases and how they apply across industries. And there's obviously a lot that's unique about the iGaming space, but we see a lot of parallels with and opportunities from other verticals that we serve as well.
Yeah, I think broadly the value case seems to center partly also around one being data, and especially in the space that I came from, the narrative around data being the new oil. So any sort of information you can get someone's location, and the use case then of that data is personalization, like you were saying. If you could give a notification for when someone's entering a certain location, that's something that people are more likely to interact with and become a loyal customer potentially. Is that those sort of use cases that are attractive to you, or are there some things that are a little bit more detailed and nuanced?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything around data collection to make the player experience better or be compliant. Existing geolocation solutions in the iGaming space will charge you for every geolocation check you do. We price a little bit differently. We price based on monthly active users and devices. So I think there's actually an opportunity to collect location data more frequently to deliver a better player experience, or give iGaming operators slightly more location intelligence, obviously being mindful of privacy and player experience and things like that. So happy to get more into that in more detail, but there's definitely some interesting opportunities there.
Absolutely. And we did do actually, back when you mentioned October 2023, when entering the iGaming space, we actually did a written interview on Next.io with yourself and Radar. That's almost a year ago now. And it was a really great overview in that piece about Radar's services, the entry into iGaming, and you had a goal of being licensed in all remaining US states by 2024. So what's the progress on that? Do you have an update for us since that time? What's been going on this year versus last year?
We made a lot of great progress on licensing. I think when we came into calendar year 2024, we were licensed in 4 jurisdictions. We're now ready to operate in 16 jurisdictions. Nice. We've got 4 more applications filed, so we expect those to come in soon. I really want to be able to say ready to operate in 20 jurisdictions. And there's just kind of a last tranche of states after that where we're filing applications soon. So we're still very much on track to be licensed everywhere by the end of this year or early next. And from a product perspective, and we can get more into this later as well, from a product perspective, we're really ready to serve the biggest, most sophisticated multi-state operators. So we've done an inventory of the geolocation requirements in every single jurisdiction, and our product satisfies them. So I think between product and licensing, we're going to have some really exciting announcements customer-wise early next year.
And you also mentioned one of the kind of value cases for Radar is compliance, and obviously that's a huge talking topic issue for the iGaming industry, with it being a bit of a challenge as well, like you mentioned, with potential customers spoofing their locations, for example. So based on that, I'm quite curious around the concept of how that spoofing actually happens as well. Is it VPNing? Is those sort of the typical actions that a user would take? But on top of that, I'm also curious about how does Radar help to make sure that operators and users of Radar stay compliant across those different regulations, across those compliance challenges that happen?
Yeah, happy to get into that. Geolocation requirements vary state by state. There's definitely some commonalities and overlap, but at a high level, you need to make sure that the player is actually in the state they say they're in, and you need to make sure that they're not spoofing their location. Lots of ways to determine a device's location. You can look at nearby Wi-Fi networks. You can use GPS. You can use the IP address and do IP geolocation. You can use, cell tower triangulation. Radar uses all of those. And our goal is to basically give a sort of spoof-proof determination of which jurisdiction a user is in. So in terms of ways that players can spoof their location, to the extent that, you're looking at IP geolocation data, proxy or VPN services a lot of states will require you to block the usage of proxy and VPN services or look for inconsistencies between the device geolocation and the IP geolocation. You can also potentially spoof the device's location with a GPS spoofing app. So there are, mock GPS spoofing apps on Android that you can install and sort of override the device's latitude and longitude. So we're able to detect that. You're also potentially able to do things like, put your device in one state and then screen share to a friend in another state, give them control of your device remotely. So you need to be able to detect that as well. So in a lot of states, being able to catch these things are sort of explicitly enumerated in the geolocation requirements. In addition, there are often requirements around how frequently you need to do geolocation checks. Maybe it's on login or at the time of the first wager, and then every X minutes thereafter, maybe every 20 minutes. In some states, there are requirements where you need to check more frequently if somebody's close to the border because they might be crossing a border, or there are exclusion zones, things like tribal areas or, casinos where, iGaming is not allowed, et cetera. So just a ton of different requirements. This is all a very natural extension of Radar's geofencing and location tracking infrastructure that we've been building for the last decade. So this is fundamentally geofencing with some additional rules and spoofing checks on top. And the nice thing is we've sort of inventoried this. We've programmed all the logic into our platform, and it's just a couple lines of code for an operator to add this to their app and say, start doing geolocation checks, give me the results of those checks. I can either sort of allow or deny access, and that's it. But they're complex. They vary state to state. This is slowed down a bit, but there will be more jurisdictions coming online. Brazil is coming online next year. So there's a lot for operators and vendors to navigate.
Yeah, and I guess the importance is then ease of use, and what technology offers is that ease of use and seamless integration, and that would obviously be a value case of Radar, is that seamless integration is enabling that sort of geolocation compliance checks to happen. Would that be a fair kind of summary of what Radar does?
Absolutely. We've spent the last almost decade optimizing for ease of integration and developer experience, and also for, the performance of our services. And that has knock-on effects for, end user experience or player experience. So we've always thought of ourselves as a developer tool at our core. People talk about companies like Stripe, the payments API, or Twilio, the communications API. We've always thought of ourselves as like a Stripe or a Twilio for geolocation. So the fact that we have really developer-friendly SDKs, open source SDKs, self-serve sign-up, really developer-friendly documentation, it's very, very unique in the gaming space. A lot of the other geolocation vendors, like, good luck finding any information about their docs or their SDKs. So developers love that. And we find that, that startups in particular really, really love working with Radar and our modern developer tooling. The other aspect of it is, what's the player experience? How quickly do these checks happen? How accurate are they? Are you minimizing false positives? In an ideal state of the world, I could be right next to the border and I could do a geolocation check and it would happen really quickly. And I'd get a quick determination like, yep, you're allowed to play. Obviously without letting anything through that shouldn't be allowed through. So we've spent a lot of time optimizing that as well. And again, our SDK is battle tested from the last decade of powering all sorts of different geolocation experiences in a variety of conditions. So yeah, I think developer experience and also performance, which Radar is really differentiated on, is very important to create these seamless, engaging player experiences.
When we're talking about clients and people that you've communicated with and refined Radar over time to give exactly what product is needed out there, is it usually like when you're kind of ticking off the boxes of the things that you need to offer a client, is it generally those two kind of key things in particular, compliance and user experience and the player experience as well, in creating an engaging kind of experience for them? Are those the two key things, or are there any other key markers that an operator or a stakeholder would be looking for that you offer as well?
Sure. Almost every Radar customer comes to us with some business objective in mind. It might be to be compliant. It might be to deliver a more seamless end user experience. Maybe it's to cut costs. A lot of operators spend 6, 7, 8 figures on their geolocation compliance solutions. Maybe it's to differentiate from their competitors. Maybe it's to engage end users in new ways. So, obviously we tick the boxes from a compliance perspective. We just talked about player experience. But I think a lot of operators, they've got 6, 7, 8 figures per year tied up in geolocation compliance. Radar tends to be somewhere between 50 to 90% less expensive than the big incumbent solution. And you can use that additional budget to do lots of interesting things. You can, if you're trying to improve your margins, like take that to the bank. You can turn on other geolocation use cases, and maybe you're engaging players with, in casino experiences or in stadium experiences, or you're able to collect, more location data on players and deliver better recommendations or optimize the player experience or something like that. So I think, the sort of lack of flexibility and costs of existing solutions is actually holding back innovation and player experience. And if an operator comes to us and says, hey, we want to cut our costs or drive engagement or turn on these new use cases, we're more than happy to help them solve that.
There was also, I'm aware that with Radar, there's a fraud detection capability within the Radar offering this as well. How's that been received by the iGaming industry, and are there any use cases that you're able to share with us that, obviously without potentially naming anyone, but is there any use cases that are quite interesting in that space that have happened?
Yeah, did you say fraud detection or
fraud detection?
Fraud detection, yeah, sure. Definitely. I think a lot of the location spoofing that is mandated under these jurisdictional geo requirements, like you might consider to be a type of fraud detection. But there are other, fraud signals that Radar is able to detect as well. And we recently launched a feature called User and Device Risk Scores that can not only look at signals of location spoofing, but also look at things like, do we have 10 different player accounts on this device? Does this one player account have, five different devices? And, if a player account has, 3 different devices, are they all in inconsistent locations? So there are signals for like account takeover and device sharing and things like that. So we're able to catch that as well. And that's been really well received. So the fact that we can do all of the geolocation use cases, plus we're starting to get into some device and user risk scoring, kind of broader fraud detection as well, is exciting. And again, I think the fact that we can power these types of on-property experiences, or even things like address autocomplete, all in one platform in a really cost-effective way has been really well received as well.
Sweet. And before we move on to kind of the future of Radar and what's coming up, there was one final thing that I found quite interesting in the past interview that we did last year around location-based messaging. And you mentioned that sort of notifications that can happen based on location and on-property app experiences that you've just mentioned as well. Are there any iGaming clients that are currently leveraging these kind of features, and what sort of impacts are they giving to the positive impacts they're giving to these clients as well?
Yeah, great question. This is one of the big reasons that Every, the iGaming and payments vendor, came to us, and so they have a white label app for casinos they're developing called Vi. And obviously they need to be compliant and understand if you're on the casino floor or not, and things like that. But they have all sorts of very, very cool loyalty and payments features. And so using location as a signal to engage players, offer that functionality and differentiate themselves from some of their competitors is really exciting. We've signed a lot of gaming startups recently, a number of really cool, innovative, sweepstakes, social, DFS type apps. Not able to name names yet, but one is going to do this very cool concept of sort of neighborhood challenges. So working with Radar to geofence neighborhoods and actually have sort of a leaderboard or competitions between neighborhoods. Awesome. and show you messaging based on which neighborhood or city that you're in. I think that's really cool. And we're talking to a lot of big sportsbook operators about how do I understand when somebody is at a stadium and engage them with kind of team specific or stadium specific messaging, live sports betting experiences, et cetera. And, again, a lot of these folks, they're so used to using existing geolocation solutions where they get charged for every geolocation check they do. the last thing they're thinking about doing is like turning on more use cases and collecting more data. But we let you do that at no additional cost. So a lot of excitement there. I think we'll have more concrete case studies to share next year.
Thinking about it's kind of just come to me thinking about like a culture of innovation, and you did mention coming from Foursquare and that sort of innovative gamification of your location. Is that something that you inject into the culture of Radar, and how do you make that happen? Is that something that's really into the fiber and makeup of the Radar company and brand?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we want to strike the right balance for our customers. I would say some customers, they really come to us for inspiration. They want to understand what's possible with location services. They want to understand what other folks are doing and take inspiration. At the same time, we have really sophisticated customers who, quite frankly, push us, and they come in with a very clearly defined vision of what they want to do, and they look for Radar to prescribe the best way to execute on it. And I think innovation can happen in both of those ways. So we see parallels in the gaming space, and we love customers that push us, and we also love to push our customers when they're open to it. I think one of our company values is walk a mile, as in walk a mile in the customer's shoes. And so one thing that I think we do to bring some of that feedback internally is, a lot of our engineers will talk directly to customers. We'll sort of, play clips of customer conversations, during our products planning meetings. And it's really fun for our engineering team to hear from folks in the gaming space, but also leading retailers and leading restaurant brands and travel websites, what they want to do, and kind of connect the dots and give folks some tools that are really flexible and let them sort of build whatever they're dreaming up, but also that are really easy to use and sort of prescriptive when it makes sense as well. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, for sure. I love the location-based tagline as well, walk a mile. And by the time this video is released, you've kind of been walking a mile to make some more advancements in the Radar company. And I understand there's a new alliance between a pretty huge company, LexisNexis Risk Solutions. And so with that announcement that's recently happened, how do you foresee this combination of geolocation and the integrity services shaping the iGaming industry and the future of iGaming compliance?
Sure. Yeah, we're incredibly excited about that alliance. So LexisNexis Risk Solutions, obviously a leader in cybersecurity and identity verification. They work with most of the big operators in one way or another. And we're really excited for them to bundle Radar's geolocation solution as part of their all-in-one offering. Partnerships have always been really, really critical to our strategy as a company, going all the way back to the founding. And whether it's offering integrations or channel partnerships or just alliances where we can sort of collaborate together and unlock a 1 + 1 = 3 situation, I think this is a great example of that. So for folks that are already working with LexisNexis Risk Solutions, being able to just turn on geolocation as part of their all-in-one suite is going to be really compelling and really powerful. So more to come there, but we're very, very excited about that. And we're also thinking about other types of channel partnerships and alliances in the gaming space that give operators more options and more opportunities to adopt Radar for geolocation.
Awesome. And I think it really does speak to that sort of innovative culture that you were talking about in Radar, that forward-thinking mentality, also understanding the client and choosing the right innovations, not just innovating for the sake of innovation. Mm-hmm. And with that in mind, I am curious about what you foresee happening in the next maybe 3 to 5 years, the kind of predictable future. What sort of innovations do you see potentially happening in geolocation technology that might have the biggest impact for the iGaming industry coming up?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the industry is realizing now that there are legitimate alternatives to the big incumbent, and so I think there's going to be 2 or 3 major players that emerge over the next couple of years. I think that's going to help the smallest startups and new entrants kind of get live with a best in class tool set more quickly, and that's going to spur innovation. I think you're going to see the biggest operators switch to radar and reduce their geolocation costs by 6, 7, or 8 figures, and also be able to turn on new geolocation use cases, as we talked about as well, and do all sorts of innovative new things. So I think both at the top end of the market and at the sort of low end of the market with startups and new entrants, you're going to see a lot of adoption of radar. It'll be interesting to see too. Do a lot of these operators have a primary and a secondary? We were just talking about KYC and identity verification. It's very common to have a couple different providers, either as a form of redundancy or cost mitigation. Maybe I do one check and fall back to another. That's never historically been the case when it comes to geolocation, but I think that could become common as well. So that's my hope, and I'd love for Radar to serve as many of the big operators and also the new startups entering the space as we can.
In the closing moments that we have, I'm curious about any advice that you would give to iGaming operators or stakeholders that would be interested in Radar, looking to adopt that sort of technology. What advice would you give them, and how can they best prepare for the future?
Yeah, we would love to talk if you're thinking about geolocation, if you have questions about geolocation, if you're considering alternatives, and that applies whether you're a new startup or a big operator or a vendor or a prospective partner. So feel free to reach out to us. We're very transparent as a company. Like I said, open developer docs, self-serve sign up. We publish a lot about our product and our licensing status and what we can support and what we can't. And what's exciting is we're able to support a lot at this point. But my advice would really just be if this is interesting to you, feel free to reach out. We'd love to be helpful if we can, or point you in the right direction if we can't. And again, we're happy to talk about compliance use cases and support, but also happy to brainstorm and really just be a partner. We think of ourselves as a partner, not a vendor, to our customers. Thinking more expansively about what else could we be doing with geolocation, because we are approaching things in sort of a unique new way, and I think there's a lot of innovation to be had. So yeah, feel free to reach out. We're on the web at radar.com.
Awesome. And I love the sort of transparent nature and things that you inject into the Radar culture, and I think that's probably for another conversation, definitely coming up on Next.io. But in the final moment, one final question is, if you could envision Radar's role in the iGaming industry within the next decade, what would it look like, and what would you like it to look like?
Yeah, I would love to support as many operators and vendors and up and comers as we can. I think ultimately, more choice is good. It leads to more innovation. It leads to more cost-effective solutions. It's good for operators. It's good for end users, et cetera. So at the high end, I'd love to be supporting the majority of the large operators, help them realize 6, 7, 8-figure cost savings and do more with geolocation. I would love to support the next wave of innovators. We've seen a huge influx of new sweepstakes and social startups that I think really are trying to do the right thing and be compliant in the ways that make sense. And probably some of them will grow to be huge companies and big operators down the road as well. And a lot of those folks are turning to us, and we'd love to support them as well. And ultimately, as a consumer who's really passionate about this stuff, I love sports, big iGaming customer myself. I just love to see new experiences unlocked, better player experiences, apps that understand if I'm at the airport or at the casino or at the stadium that engage me in these kind of new, compelling ways. I'd love for Radar to be a catalyst there as well. So we'll see what we can do, but we're excited about it, and more to come.
Awesome. Well, that concludes this episode of Next.io's Spotlight. And just from one self-professed tech nerd to another, thank you, Nick, for taking the time today. And super excited to see what Radar has coming up in the future.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks so much, Stuart.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.